What you're about to do is compare two fatality fires. The first is the Loop Fire, which occurred on November 1st, 1966. The second is the Glen Allen Fire, which occurred on August 20th, 1993. Both of these fires occurred in one of the most dangerous wildland fire environments in the world. Precipitous, rugged slopes of decomposing granitic rock, eroding into numerous chimneys and steep chutes, create the terrain where fire always moves faster than firefighters. Overlay this topography with a profile of flashy fuels and heavy brush. Place this environment near an ocean where strong temperature gradients result in extreme foehn wind conditions, the Santa Anas. It's no mystery that Southern California has provided some of the most important fire suppression lessons we've learned. Many firefighters will say the term urban-wildland interface was coined here. Over time, developed areas have pushed deep into the chaparral-covered mountain ranges of Southern California. With this expanded development came an expectation of fire protection. If fire threatened property, it was to be suppressed at any and all cost. Sometimes this protection has been paid for at the highest price: human life. The Loop Fire started at approximately 0520 on November 1st, 1966, in the Angeles National Forest. The cause was a faulty electric distribution line. A nearby lookout immediately reported the start. Initial attack began 17 minutes after detection. Within 30 minutes, the U.S. Forest Service, the Los Angeles County, and the Los Angeles City Fire Departments were engaged in suppression efforts. The fire spread rapidly under the influence of a strong Santa Ana wind blowing out of the northeast. The Los Angeles County and City Fire Departments held responsibility for the south side of the fire, Division C. The Forest Service concentrated along the northwest side, Division B, and along the east side, Division A. By mid-morning, Line Boss Masterson and Division A Boss Westmoreland had the Chileo hotshot crew and two Los Angeles County hand crews building fire line toward Point A. They were delivered to the top of the fire, as would all other crews coming to Division A during the day. Here you're looking north at the Loop Fire. We'll focus on the southeast corner of the fire, where Division A meets Division C. The weather began to change late in the morning. The afternoon conditions were that of a dying foehn wind. The dry northeast Santa Ana winds were lessening, and the normal Southern California onshore ocean breeze was reestablishing itself. The temperature was in the low 80s. The relative humidity, which had been as low as 12%, was increasing due to the return of the onshore ocean breeze. This onshore breeze from the west was estimated at 10 to 20 miles per hour. When Fire Boss Beatty noticed the Santa Ana winds starting to decrease, he ordered a lead plane and 5 air tankers to work on Division A, taking advantage of the opportunity to slow the fire's spread. Beatty also appointed a liaison officer, Woody Height, to work with the Los Angeles County firefighters on Division C. At about this same time, 2 more hotshot crews, Dalton and Del Rosa, had joined in the line construction on the upper portions of Division A. The superintendents of these crews were aware of the steep, dangerous chimneys that lay on the slopes below. In the 1960s, hotshot crews had an energetic esprit de corps, which often made balancing safety with aggressive fire suppression difficult. However, Dalton Hotshot Crew Superintendent Hartley had refused the assignment to complete the line on these slopes. Above Point A, good progress was being made, and the only piece of uncontained fire that remained was in this southeast corner. At 1400, the El Carrizo Hotshot Crew arrived on the fire. They were without radio communications, since the last Angeles Forest radios had already been issued. The El Carrizo hotshots met up with line boss Masterson on the upper portions of Division A. They were instructed to leapfrog with the other hotshot crews and cold trail the fire's edge if possible. Masterson pointed out that the terrain was steep, there would be lots of rolling rocks, and there might be a few fire runs. Masterson also mentioned that the main ridge could be used as an alternate if following the fire edge was impossible. At about this same time, Liaison Officer Height arrived at the Los Angeles County Command Post, which was near this same corner of the fire. The county crews were approaching this corner along Division C. The work remaining to be done on Division A was visible from this point. By 1435, El Carrizo Hotshot Superintendent King led his crew to Point A. He had them wait there until he could determine if it was possible to cold trail the fire down into the Chimney Canyon toward Point D. Although visibility was somewhat limited, King could see the Los Angeles County dozers and hand crews in Division C. They were working east along the edge of the fire toward the lower end of the Chimney Canyon his crew was in. King believed his crew could cold trail down and tie in with the county crews at Point D. At 1445, Line Boss Masterson requested Division A Boss Westmoreland to go down the east line to ensure fire line construction efforts were coordinated. Westmoreland caught up with the tail end of the El Carrizo hotshot crew, where the fire line descended into the Chimney Canyon. Westmoreland was unable to see or directly contact Superintendent King, who was well down in the canyon without a radio. At 1500, Superintendent King led his crew carefully down and across a steep rocky face where the retardant line placed earlier in the day had checked the fire spread. Liaison Officer Height could see the El Carrizo hotshots as they worked and relayed by radio to Division A Boss Westmoreland that the crew was cold trailing and that they would be able to construct line down the rocky chute in the Chimney Canyon. Westmoreland waited until the last of the crew cleared the rock face. He then proceeded down the rock face in order to make contact with King. Most of the El Carrizo hotshot crew had worked their way down to a small bench at Point C. The fire had backed down to the bench and gone out. It was not a clean burn. By 1530, Superintendent King and some of his crew were at Point B, with the remaining crew strung out above in the chimney. From Point B, the fire edge dropped into a deep gully, and then went west to Point D, where the dozer line ended. From this location, King could see that this gully was too steep to work. Although he could not see the bottom of the gully, he could tell that holding a fire line there would be dangerous and difficult. Another alternative was to construct and hold an indirect line from Point B to Point D, crossing the gully where there was less brush and the sides were not as steep. This indirect fire line would be about 100 feet from the fire's edge. King chose this indirect alternative. His choice would require constructing about 500 feet of hand line. The El Carrizo hotshot crew probably could have built this fire line in 10 to 15 minutes because of natural openings and sparse fuels. At this time, King, Westmoreland, and Height all observed the fire behavior to be in a static situation, with only a few hotspots on the west side of the deep gully. These hotspots were about 150 feet above the dozer line. The wind was blowing upslope, providing favorable conditions to close the gap between Division A and Division C. In Division C, Los Angeles County Captain Hayes decided it would be unsafe and time-consuming to attempt to cross the deep gully immediately ahead of his dozer. Instead, at 1535, he sent a county hand crew around the gully with orders to scout the opportunities for meeting El Carrizo from the east side of the deep gully. King was unaware that the county hand crew had pulled out and gone around to meet him, as he did not have communication with them. A combination of heavier fuels and turbulent surface winds caused one of the hot spots to cross over to the steep east slope of the gully at Point E. This established fire in the mouth of the chimney canyon. King's decision to go down toward the dozer line was made before it was obvious to him that the fire had crossed the gully. King was approximately 60 feet from the fire as it spread across the mouth of the chimney canyon. Superintendent King had no time to do any more than yell at his crew to move out. Brush and heavy litter in this area provided additional heat impact up the chimney canyon. This heat was sufficient to ignite the sparse, unburned fuel patches. Fire spread to the top of this 2,200-foot chimney in less than 1 minute. 11 of the crew members moved toward an area just above Point B and survived. 10 crew members went into the chimney at Point F and did not survive. King came out below the fire badly burned. 2 of the survivors from Point B died several weeks later. 27 years later, and less than 20 miles away, another fire claimed the lives of 2 firefighters and severely burned 2 others. The Glen Allen fire was reported at 15:11 hours on August 20th, 1993. It began as a vehicle fire and quickly spread to the surrounding vegetation. The fire was located in Altadena, an area protected by the Los Angeles County Fire Department and adjacent to the Angeles National Forest. This is an initial action zone for both agencies. The temperature was in the mid-80s. The relative humidity was 35 to 40%, with southwest winds estimated at 5 to 10 miles per hour. The weather remained constant throughout the afternoon. Los Angeles County and the Angeles National Forest both sent a first alarm brush dispatch that consisted of 10 engines, 1 Forest Service hotshot crew, 1 bulldozer, 4 Los Angeles County inmate hand crews, and a Los Angeles County helitack module. The helitack module consisted of Helicopter 15 and a 9-person fly crew with the call number of Crew 22. Each agency also dispatched battalion chiefs and support personnel. This was a total of approximately 165 firefighters. Los Angeles County was working 2 other wildland fires at the time, and the Forest Service was assisting on one of these fires. These 2 fires involved 1 Angeles National Forest helicopter and 4 Los Angeles County helicopters. As a result, both agencies were short of helitack crews when the Glen Allen fire was reported. With all Los Angeles County fly crew supervisors committed to other fires, a crew supervisor without fly crew experience was pressed into service with a backup fly crew for the Glen Allen dispatch. This crew supervisor had 14 years of fire experience, with 3 of those years as a supervisor of inmate hand crews. The backup fly crew was Ground Crew 22. They had been recalled from a work project to go into service as a fly crew. Crew 22 consisted of 6 firefighters, 2 crew leaders with 13 and 23 years of fire experience, and the temporarily assigned crew supervisor. As Ground Crew 22 pulled into the station, they were dispatched to the Glen Allen fire. In their haste to load in Helicopter 15, they forgot their second crew radio. Helicopter 15 with Crew 22 arrived over the fire at 15:28 and circled the fire twice. The crew supervisor, the crew leaders, and the pilot discussed their options. In their size-up, they observed that the fire had made an initial run up a bowl and had crested a ridge with fire burning on each side of the ridge. This ridge is the east side of a large drainage containing many small dissecting chimneys. Flame lengths were a maximum of 2 to 3 feet, and the crew viewed this as no big deal, a quick in and out assignment. They decided to land above the fire on an open knob and proceed down the ridge, and with the assistance of Helicopter 15, attack the head of the fire. You're now looking down that ridge. The crew offloaded at 15:33 and put the plan into action, attacking the head of the fire with 4 crew members working the fire edge on each side of the ridge. The group working the fire edge on the east side of the ridge quickly knocked down the fire and put in a scratch line downhill about 75 feet. Within 10 minutes, the crew supervisor regrouped the crew and directed the entire crew to work the fire edge downhill along the west side of the ridge. Helicopter 15 began making water drops on the west side of the ridge in front of the crew as they built handline downhill toward the Altadena Crest Horse Trail. The horse trail is highlighted along the center of the screen. You're now looking directly across the large drainage at the horse trail. By 1600, Crew 22 tied their handline into the trail. This trail had stopped the uphill fire spread for approximately 75 feet to the west of their tie-in point. Crew 22 walked the trail west to where the fire edge dropped below the trail into the bottom of the drainage. They took a short 2 or 3 minute break at this location. The survivors of this incident all described the fire below the trail as laid down, knocked down, or out. During their short break, the crew talked briefly about safety concerns, but generally the crew was encouraging the crew supervisor to continue the attack below the trail. No scouting was performed prior to initiating line construction below the trail. The trail extended southeast into the burn, providing a complete view of the drainage below the trail. This viewpoint was about 200 feet from where the crew took their break. The crew supervisor did not use this scouting opportunity. The fire edge extended about 80 feet straight below the crew's location on the trail. The fuels were mostly light grass, with clumps of brush and a few pine trees scattered in the area. It appeared to the crew supervisor and all the crew members that the fire edge made a 90-degree turn to the left, or east, and tied back up to the trail. However, there was a clump of tall brush blocking their view of the actual fire edge below. As a result, Crew 22 did not see that the fire edge went around the tall brush and continued below their position into a narrow chimney. They also did not see that an engine crew and a hand crew were flanking the fire up from the bottom. In addition, neither the crew supervisor nor any of the crew members recognized that they were going to be working in a chimney. This chimney was approximately 20 feet wide and extended about 150 feet into the bottom of the drainage, with the last half of the chimney being a sheer drop-off. At about 1605, Crew 22 began to build direct handline below the trail. The decomposed granite soil had a 5 to 6 inch root mass, and as the crew worked down the hill, the root mass was broken up, leaving crew members in ankle-deep sand on the extremely steep hillside. Helicopter 15 made several water drops below the crew during this time. The 23-year veteran crew leader decided to come back up on the trail to function as a lookout without direction from the crew supervisor. However, he had only verbal communication with the crew, as the crew's second radio had been forgotten. Less than a minute after he was back on the trail, the lookout noticed the fire had crossed the bottom of the drainage and began shouting for everyone to get out. The crew reversed their tool order, but the extremely steep slope and loose soil conditions made the uphill escape route nearly impossible to use.
When I was up here, then I could see that tree down there, that sumac way across the canyon where that hole sign is, inside the burn. Right. It started going. So they were about, I could still see the guys about right there where the cloud was, and I said, hey, fellow foreman, hey, come back up, we got a spot on the other side. And this wasn't even burn yet. Right. There's a little island right here. So the foreman said, okay, let's go. But that time, it just ripped. Something just in there just started turning. A tornado just came right out of the whole canyon. And then I got another one guy got him. There was only 3, and then I was 4, and then the foreman came up, and I think it came so fast that the guys kind of
scattered.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And we got up here and tore our things up, and then on Sunday, that side started catching. So we had fire here and fire in front of us. So I said, okay, guys, let's go. So we just broke them, started going like this, and the flames were coming. I was just going. And we got to that point right there, and that's where it kind of slowed down, but all this little section was hot as hell.
The other crew leader and the 3 remaining crew members contoured the difficult terrain, heading into the burn below the trail. They proceeded about 10 feet into the black before the heat impact and flame hit them. The fire was on them so quickly that they did not react by reaching for their fire shelters. At this point, 2 of these individuals were on or near the ground. They survived with severe burn injuries. The other 2 individuals that remained upright, trying to continue their flight, were burned over most of their body. 1 died on site, and 1 was pronounced dead at the hospital. You have just seen the events that occurred on the Loop Fire and the Glen Allen Fire. Comparisons between these fires are tragic. There are many similar factors that warrant analysis. The instructor will now facilitate a discussion about the use of fire safety guidelines by the involved personnel, the strategic and tactical decisions that were made, and the human factors that contributed to these burnover incidents.